Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today, at the request of a donor, we are playing some Bug Nadu. I have played a previous build of this deck on the channel before, and this is a sort of updated one, and we're going to see how it goes today. So, this deck is a sort of mid-rangey Green Sun Zenith type thing, but it does have this little Nadu package built into it. So we have Nadu, which can combo with the Shukos, which we can get off the Urza Sagas, but it can also combo with like Quirion Ranger and Sylvan Safekeeper, as well as everyone's favourite pussycat, Scythecat Cub. So we've got some stuff going on here, but we've also just got like a fine mid-rangey plan where we can just go like, you know, we'll Thoughtseize our opponent, we'll play a Mana Dork, ramp out like a Leovold or whatever, or play a cat and start growing it. And we've got like a nice little tutor box, so we can go and get things like Grist or Endurance. Like Safekeeper, as I mentioned, for a little bit of protection for our creatures. We've got a Keen-Eyed Curator here, which can be a good threat on its own, as well as combing our opponent's doing. We've got some Orcish Bowmasters, like a just good black card that we've got access to, along with Fatal Push and Dismember as some sort of ways of removing some creatures. Assassin's Trophy on top of that. We've got a few little land, like utility sort of lands in here. So we've got Dryad Arbor, we can obviously fetch with the Green Sun Zenith. The Saga, as I mentioned before, we're not trying to do Saga gaming. This is just basically a slow tutor for Shuko most of the time. They've got a few Wastelands to sort of pepper our opponent's mana base and get rid of some annoying things like a Tabernacle or whatever that might be bothering us. Once upon a time, just smooth out our opening draws, and then we just got a bunch of lands that tap for mana over here. We do not have a basic island, because we are very light into our blue splash, so we're pretty much just splashing for Nadu and Leovold, which we're probably going to be casting off of Dorks or Green Sun's anything for anyway. At the sideboard, we got some more removal in Fail Pushes and Snuff Outs. We've got a little bit more Graveyard Hate in Faerie Macabre and Endurance. We're blowing up some artifacts and messing with them. We've got Force of Vigor, Outland Liberator, and Collector Ouphe. Nice, like, generic Disruptor Flute, which can hate on things like Doomsday, among other things. A bit more Graveyard Hate in Silent Gravestone, which we can obviously go and fetch with our Urza Saga. And then we have a Pithing Needle, which we can also grab off the Saga. So quite a lot going on. Various moving pieces. I imagine the games are going to look quite different to each other because we have lots of different targets for our Green Sun Zenith, and they're going to play out quite differently depending on the matchups we're into and what we're drawing. Obviously, when we start doing Nadu stuff, we do just go over the top and win, because this silly bird is allowed to be still. Alright, like, subscribe, and let's get jamming with some Nadu Bug Midrange. For the best Eternal experience this summer, check out Eternal Mania in Hasselt, Belgium from August 8th to 10th. Aside from hosting the European Legacy Masters, they have a whole host of other tournaments from team trios to old school and pre-modern. I will be there playing Legacy and hanging out as a special guest. This will also be the first event that I'll be giving out my own special Marit Lage tokens, so why not come down to enjoy an awesome weekend ran by one of the best TOs in Europe. So we've got some disruption, but our hand doesn't really go anywhere. We can just sort of like disrupt our opponent, chip them in for a little bit and hope we draw something useful. Is that acceptable with an Underground Mortuary to add a little bit of extra value there? Okay, I think I will keep this one because we're set up to basically draw pretty much anything else in our deck is going to be good at this point. And Delighted Halfling, not a great win condition, but it does still clock for a little bit. So it's not like this hand has zero way of doing anything. Okay, Misty Rainforest into Island. I'm thinking our opponent is on Omnitel. That's what this start makes me think. I could be wrong on that. Okay, so now we found like a reasonable payoff here. I think I'm going to get a Bayou and Thoughtseize my opponent. So if they're show and tell, they can possibly go on turn 2. And I don't really want that to happen to us. This does mean that we're going to be a little bit behind because our next land comes into play tapped. But this gives us the option of possibly drawing an untapped land where we get to go Dork plus second Thoughtseize. Alright, it is a show and tell. What is Meringue River Regent? Draw 3 cards, discard a card, bounce 2 non-land permanents. I've got show and tell over there. I don't want that to happen. Aurora Procession is return any card, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. They don't have the green mana yet, so I will just take the show and tell. So next time we can fire in a Thoughtseize, which probably has to take the Aurora Procession, which is a bit annoying. But then we have the follow-up with Surveil Land. Or Land and Mana Dog. Okay, we didn't hit the Mana Dog. Okay, I think this is still just a Thoughtseize again. 2 Cunning Wishes. Okay. I guess we take the Procession here, because this is just a direct line to what they want. Doesn't seem great for us, though. Does feel weird taking a card they can't cast, but their deck needs show and tell to win the game. So if we can take out their ability to have show and tell, it's going to be harder for them to win the game. That's a pretty reasonable proposition in my opinion. A Tamiyo, not a bad rip there. So our Bowmasters is probably not resolving here. Okay, I guess we try this Delighted Halfling, because this is more likely to get a Force of Will out of our opponent, because it means they can't Force of Will the next follow-up, potentially. And do I just get another Delighted Halfling, or do I want a Birds here? I think I want a Birds. And we've already got uncountable legendary mana here. We may as well have something that can allow us to cast some other spells. Obviously, we just have a saturation of creatures right now, so... Well, the biggest deal, but obviously this can add mana to cast these spells, whereas this can only cast mana for legendary things. Or colourless mana. Right, they're going to start cranking out some clues. We do have this Force of Will we need to get around. They're not showing Kaito mana, so I'm not going to try and block here. That's not something I'm expecting. Stock up is obviously excellent for our opponents. Okay, what is the play here? What do I think they will... I'm going to try and bait them with this Orcish Bowmasters. I don't actually want this Orcish Bowmasters to resolve that much. Well, obviously I do, but I think their Scythecat Cub and just pressuring our opponent is more important than taxing these clues a tiny bit. Yep, so here's a Force, pitching one of the Cunning Wishes. Okay. So now I'll play out my Scythecat Cub, which is going to be my actual threat that we're trying to win the game with. We'll play this. Pop a counter on this. And we'll probably just play out the Halfling, just get more material in play. Don't want a Tropical Island. I want our opponent thinking about counter magic. So yes. And I will double the counters on this little Scythecat Cub. Then I will deploy a Delighted Halfling. So if we find some more land, we can get a pretty sizable Scythecat Cub bashing our opponent next turn. Misty Rainforest. They have green mana now, so they can do Aurora Procession lines. So us taking that Aurora Procession is now relevant because they have the mana to go and get it back. As I knew it would eventually happen. They might just have another one though, but we'll see. 4 mana. Meringue. So they're going to draw 3 and then discard a card. This is going to flip their Tamiyo. Killing Tamiyo shouldn't be particularly difficult. We just need a land to do it. Delighted Halfling is not a land here. Definitely on the awkward side for us. I think we have to get the Tamiyo down because otherwise they can go and get back show and tell. Yeah, basically just every blue deck is running Tamiyo at this point. Right, we have a Keen-Eyed Curator here. This can slap pretty hard. If we draw a fetch land, we do have lethal here, I think. Creature, land, instant sorcery. Yeah, okay. A Force of Will, pitching a Brainstorm. Right, I will deploy nothing here. I will save this so our opponent has maybe a counter spell to think about. A 1 power guy is not really doing anything in the face of Tamiyo anyway, but we can represent something here. We don't want our opponent to just know it's a free roll. But this Tamiyo is at least buying them a couple of turns of pressure. Show and tell. I guess we put in our guy and we probably lose this turn. They got no innocence. Yep, so Cunning Wish, because we know this is the last card in the hand and we die. Yep, we just couldn't really get enough going there. Which was obviously a risk with our opening hand. But I figured against combat deck we have some disruption. We should probably draw into something useful, but didn't quite work out that way. I'll take a Disruptor Flute, please. If we can put some triggers on the stack, we can then fire in stuff like the Outland Liberator, Force of Vigor type cards. So, how much stuff do we have that puts things on the stack? It's not really a fatal push matchup stack can go. I guess we can kill Tamiyo. Is that really what I'm doing? Leaving a fatal pushes for Tamiyo? I don't think so. Lands can trigger with Scythecat Cub. Orcish Bowmasters puts a trigger on the stack. The Endurance is not without text here. Maybe we get rid of the Dismember as well. It's not a great matchup for Wasteland. Like, it's okay, we can sometimes hit one of their Ancient Tombs or something, but it's not really what I'm all about here. Grist gives us an answer to an Emrakul or something if they just show and tell an Emrakul, so I think that's fine. Assassin's Trophy can obviously hit everything. We need 2 more cuts to get these cards in. Maybe it's Endurance. Like they are running Aurora Procession though. That's kind of like a thing that we... Because if we Thoughtseize them, they just bring it back. That's not going to feel very good for us. The Endurance is probably better than a Keen-Eyed Curator because this can actually catch a spell. Maybe we'll just take out 1 Wasteland. That seems okay to me. We have a lot of mana in our deck. Okay, this is fine. It's very mana heavy, but we have the ability to dig for a threat, and we can also make uncounterable threats here. Orcish Bowmasters or Scythecat Cub. I think I prefer the Cub. I'm going to get Bayou, and I will deploy the Halfling. We can't just mulligan to one of our four Thoughtseize when we have, you know, some lands and spells that can play a game of Magic the Gathering here. Our opponent generally won't combo till turn... Like, turn 2 is the earliest they tend to combo. Sometimes there are rare situations where they go Lotus Petal, Ancient Tomb and get you. But most of the time they're going to take a little bit of working out because they're a 3-card combo deck for the most part. Because they don't just want to show and tell. They want to show and tell Omniscience and they want to have something to go with it. Now, a lot of the things that go with it are just cantrips and stuff, so it's quite easy to have. Alright, a Tamiyo. Pretty good. Thoughtseize is nice here. I think I'm going to play the Scythecat Cub first. And just go for pressure and disruption. So if they counterspell this, then the Thoughtseize gets through. Let's pump it up. Go to Bayou. Let's grow the Cub a bit more. Let's fire a Thoughtseize at our opponent. Aurora Procession, Show and Tell Omniscience. Okay. So I guess we take the Show and Tell, then they have to Aurora Procession it back. This means that we are safe if they draw like an Ancient Tomb. We can take the Omniscience, but obviously they can get back any card with this. Right, I think we just put the Show and Tell away. Buy ourselves a turn. So yeah, this Aurora Procession is going to look pretty good. But hopefully the Wasteland will be enough to set our opponent off balance. Why are they not playing their land out? I'm just attacking first. I guess this plays around us having some sort of weird crop rotation off of a Spirit Guide, Wasteland their source when they go into combat. This way, once they play the land out, they can always get something out of it, whether it's a procession or a clue. They have the flexibility there. I would like to get this out, but we don't really have that option available to us. Let's go to Cub. What are we going to tutor for here? I kind of like the Keen-Eyed Curator. So if we attack with the Cub here, then we green thumbs down for Keen-Eyed Curator. Oh, did we take the Keen-Eyed Curator out? I think we did, didn't we? Yeah, that would have been good in this spot. Okay. I think we have to Wasteland here. They're going to Aurora Procession back their Show and Tell, or they're going to Aurora Procession back their land, so they can float the green off of this and then get their land back. They're getting back the Show and Tell, they're losing their land. I don't think we're just getting another cat here. I think we're just going to play out a Halfling. We've missed the damage here, which is kind of annoying. And then we'll save this for something like a Leovold, which might be able to do enough to stop them being able to combo underneath. Like once they get their Omniscience out, they might not be able to combo because they'll be like stuck with things like Brainstorm, which doesn't actually get them where they need to go. Obviously, if they get things like Stock Up and they're obviously loaded, the Aurora Procession can just be more copies of Stock Up. Brainstorm. So they're flipping the Tamiyo now. The Scythecat Cub does kill the Tamiyo. But they're doing this because they need to find land. And we can go and get a Leovold this next turn. Alternatively, we can get a Nadu and then wait for this to burn down. I don't think that's going to be very time efficient. I think we should have this game over and done with before the Saga finishes doing its thing. Alright, so Tamiyo, +1, yep. Found a land, and it's a fetch land to shuffle as well, so not too shabby. Orcish Bowmasters, that's a pretty good one. I'll deploy this Saga. Cat will continue to get larger. I guess we could maybe split the counters a little bit here, but this just means that if we ever get a fetch land, we do way more damage than our opponent can handle. So this will attack Tamiyo. I think getting Leovold is better. Is it better than just playing a Bowmasters? Like just shutting down our opponent's ability to draw cards just feels so good here. Alternatively, we could go and get Outland Liberator. So if they put Omniscience in, we can blow it up. Okay, I'll do that. a slight change of plan there, because we have something that puts a trigger on the stack in hand. Right, this deck's got a lot of lines, and I'm kind of indecisive about them. So we could have done this and saved a land mana instead of a Delighted Halfling mana. Mistrise Village, untapped. We're going to see a show and tell here. I'm going to put in my Orcish Bowmasters. I'm going to ping my opponent here. And then I'm going to blow up this Omniscience. So they can Aurora Procession a couple of times here. But there's not really anything good they can get. They can get back a Brainstorm. What? They're just Aurora Processioning for Aurora Processions. We can get Brain Freeze or something. That'd be cool at least. I guess we can use F6 and let our opponent do this a bunch. Some kind of 9. If my opponent Brain Freeze uses them out, that's kind of cool. I guess they have Cunning Wish for Brain Freeze is where this line finishes. They have Lethal Storm. Cunning Wish. You got a Brain Freeze? Firemind's Foresight, okay. Like, this line doesn't work if our opponent has a Cunning Wish anyway, because Cunning Wish with the Omniscience just usually goes over the top of stuff. Plane Genesis into the Floodmoor. There is the Brain Freeze. You could have just got that earlier, to be honest. That would have worked. Alright, the Brain Freeze is out. That's kind of cool. Yes, even if we get the Leovold there, our opponent didn't draw any extra cards that turn, so it wouldn't have made any difference. I think we're just always going to be a dog to matchups that look like this. Let's go to round 2. Okay. We can keep this. We need to make a decision about what our turn 1 looks like. Is our turn 1 going to be just getting a birds out? That does die to Orcish Bowmasters in a pretty horrible fashion. But I also don't want to die to Wasteland in a horrible fashion. I think I'm going to get a Bayou and deploy the birds. So if our opponent's Reanimator, they probably might not even have any Orcish Bowmasters in the main deck. But basically, all of these blue-black tempo adjacent decks have got Wastelands in. So I think it's better to play around the Wasteland rather than the Bowmasters here. Fail push, sure. Like, that's going to clean that up relatively nicely for them. An Orcish Bowmasters, you say? Do I want to play out an Orcish Bowmasters or do I want to Thoughtseize my opponent? I think given the nature of Legacy at the moment, I want to Thoughtseize my opponent. Make sure we're not getting entombed upon. Now they can crack this and Brainstorm and protect their hand. Entomb, Daze, Force of Will, Murktide Regent. I think I'm going to take the... Considering they don't have any reanimation right now. I think we just want to take the Force because we can go over the top of what they're doing. If they're playing a fair game plan, it's fine. Like, yes, we die if they rip the reanimate or the animate dead or whatever. But it's just... I don't think we're beating that Force of Will anyway. Right, they left a card on top. How dead are we? Thoughtseize. Okay, so they're probably going to take the Nadu here. We'd like to find a land on our next turn, though. They did take the Nadu as expected. That kind of changes our plan a little bit. Obviously, our plan hinges on drawing a land, so... Alright, we're going to see a Murktide Regent backed up by Daze. Yep, this is unfortunate, because we had to play around so many things here. Like, if we can get our Nadu combo in, we're all good. They didn't have any hand disruption. And then we draw this eternity late. That's cool. I can Thoughtseize away my opponent's Daze. Is that better than doing the Orcish Bowmasters? I guess so. I think we're just dead here. And we begrudgingly have to take the Daze, which does leave them with an Entomb. Because we need to be able to resolve our spells. Yep, this is a pretty big bite of our life total. Once upon a time. Not the most useful. I think we have to cast a Once Upon a Time here looking for land. As sad as that is. We found a land. Okay, we have a Grist though. But how are we ever getting this Grist into play? That is one of the answers we're looking for, but we can always green some Zenith for it. Okay, I think it's Tropical Island. We have to play out our Tropical Island, and then I think we're going to... we need to get a guy out. Yeah, I think we need to green sun here, as annoying as that is. Because we need to be able to... So this can obviously find Grist, but by the time it does. It's not enough. We need to have the mana to be able to kill them next turn if we draw a Grist or a Green Sun. So we got a 5 outer in our deck. Actually, no, we can't even Green Suns here, can we? Because we haven't got enough mana. We can't draw land and thingy, but we can at least block for a turn with the Endurance, and that gives us a little bit more wiggle room. So to draw land into Green Sun. Okay, so we found a land, and this can be a Surveil land. I'm going to play this Endurance now. We don't want to put these in our deck because we want to have as many cards in our deck that we can draw that let us survive. And if we get through this, we do still have this Entomb being held over our heads. Right, let's try and surveil our way to that Grist that we need. Endurance. This buys us another turn, but then we're in exactly the same spot again, right? So I think we just need to say no and try and deal with it right now. A Wasteland. That's not it, and we die. Okay. How are we gonna bash this one up? I would like some Endurances. That seems good. Faerie Macabre seems good. Silent Greystone is a bit of a nombo with a Faerie Macabre, but that's fine. Possibly Fatal Pushes. We don't know how into the fair plan they're going. This obviously doesn't kill the Murktide though, so it's kind of rubbish for that. So we don't want those. Right, I think we probably want these 3 as the main ones, and then we'll see if we want anything else afterwards. Nadu is how we're going to go over the top. Leovold, very good. We don't really want to be wastelanding our opponent in a matchup like this. We can take out one of those. Do we just take out all the wastelands? That leaves us with, what, 21 lands and effectively 9 dorks, if we include this. Yeah, I'll try that. So Wasteland in a matchup like this is basically there just to pay for daisies. But if we're on the play, that's not so bad. Okay, I'll keep this. We have an answer for their graveyard plan. We just need lands. Obviously, I did board out some Wastelands, but there we go. Maybe this would have been a Wasteland, but then this is one of the reasons our hand is good, so. Alright, let's go and get a Delighted Halfling out. So we can try and do a turn 2 Nadu, if we hit the right thing. Otherwise, we can just go and Green Sun our way for more guys. Get more mana. Tamiyo is pretty good. If we draw a land, we might be able to try and ambush the Tamiyo. Okay, it doesn't ambush a Tamiyo, does it? I'm going to Green Sun here for a Dryad Arbor. I'm going to Dismember this Tamiyo. A Daze, okay. That means we're not getting reanimated on next turn. It did cost us 4 life, but this matchup probably isn't about our life total for the most part. So we're going to get ourselves a clue. They're going to Thoughtseize us or anything. And shuffle off the Ponder. Faerie Macabre is okay. I think I'll just make an uncounterable Nadu here. Give them the fear. Now, if we lose any of our creatures, then we're at least going to get paid out for it. We've got 2 pieces of graveyard deck, so not worried about that. Tamiyo isn't attacking into a Nadu. They might just crack fetch land, fatal push. Alright, so they're going to flip their Tamiyo instead. That's an okay situation for us. We can handle that. Maybe we draw Shuko. We can go and get Quirion Ranger. Start popping off here. We've got Scythecat Cub, so we probably want to do that pre-attacks in case we can make this big enough to kill. So I think this is... Let's see if we burn a Force of Will on this. Okay. Flip mana from this. We can untap this by bouncing a forest. Have an Urza Saga. That's going to work its way towards something good. I'm a little bit reluctant here to play out this Grist because it's our only green card. So I think we can actually afford to do that. Although we have the Faerie Macabre, so maybe it's fine. Or maybe we just slam the Endurance here. I think the Grist is... Actually, we can't even cast the Grist. We don't have black mana. We can play an Endurance around a Daze here. Force of Will. Interesting. That suggests they're more on a fair line here. Right, let's half health this Tamiyo. And build over an Entomb. We kind of want them to be doing Entomb things. That's awkward. As long as we've got this Faerie Macabre, we're happy about them doing that. Are we... We can't really stop them getting a Murktide here, can we? No. 1, 2, 3, 4. So they have the Murktide, they have it. We can't really stop that, but we can go over the top with an Urza Saga in a couple of turns. Yep, it's a very big Murktide. So we take one hit from this and then we do the Nadu thing, and hopefully the Nadu thing should be enough to get us there. We do have this Uncountable Grist though. Brainstorm, sure. I don't know if I'm untapping a forest here. So we have 1, 2, 3. So we have this mana for Grist. Then we also have enough mana for an Urza Saga construct next turn if we don't use the Quirion Ranger now. So I think we don't get our card from the Quirion Ranger. Keen-Eyed Curator, sure. So we tap green here. And we return a forest to untap this. I found a land, that's even better. Okay, so now we can make this construct. We have black mana here. Cast a Grist. Minus the Grist. I'm going to sacrifice this token. Kill the Murktide. Tamiyo. And then we can deploy this Underground Mortuary, I think. And next time we get Shuko and our opponent is very dead. So... They need to have Thoughtseize and Tomb Reanimate at this point. When am I going to say no to a Green Sun Zenith in our deck? Probably never. That's not true. There are definitely some situations where we'll be needing to draw something else, but I think our situation here is very favourable. Thoughtseize. This is part of the 3-card combination that our opponent needs to beat us. We don't care if they make a Murktide here. They're just going to Tomb Reanimate us now. So we could have pitched this Faerie Macabre, but we don't care about that. Because if they make a Murktide, like we can make their Murktide smaller, but we don't really care about the Murktide. They're about to do Nadu things. The only thing we care about is the great. Okay, they left us with Faerie Macabre, so that's fine. How are they going to beat this Nadu? Barragoyf. So they're not going to beat the Nadu. That's what you're telling me. I could bounce something here, but we don't need to because we're going to have all the cards we want in a second. I would rather have 2 more draws here, so let's make a construct. And again, our opponent should probably scoop at this point. We are very far ahead. Alright, our opponent scooped it up. So we did our mid-rangey thing, and it was good. Excellent. I think we go in again. We did see Barragoyf, which makes me want maybe another Fatal Push though. I'll trim a Thoughtseize for a Fatal Push. We could just rely on our Graveyard Hate stuff to deal with the graveyard things and just get rid of all the Thoughtseize and just have another Fatal Push. But Fatal Push is basically only good against like 1, maybe 2 creatures in their deck. We kind of need to find a green source off this Once Upon a Time. But I believe in the ability to do that. In our opponent's upkeep, I think we'll do this. So they can't daze it. Didn't find that green source though. Did find a Saga. Okay, we could be in a spot of bother here. Unfortunately, this one isn't free. I think I'll just play out this swamp. I'm not just going to get the Saga going because we might need it as an actual land drop here. And Entomb. Yep, are we just dead? They might not go into it though. No, they're going for it. We can beat this. We have an Assassin's Trophy in our hand. I guess I'll get rid of this Once Upon a Time. Now our Assassin's Trophy has to resolve, but... Alright, here we are. I think we do it now and our opponent's tapped out. If they can't spell this, we skip. Alright. Best deck in the format. Still the best deck in the format. Okay, now this, like, our lands didn't really come together. Maybe we're not supposed to keep that one. But 4 hits, so this is 5 hits, isn't it? So we had 6 hits to find a green source. Like, we're odds on to find one there, and we just missed. Alright, on to round 3. For free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping on high-end singles, classic products, and full sets, check out 3for1 Trading. Whether it's the legacy or pre-modern that I play on this channel, or even vintage and old school, they've got you covered. Find them through the link in the description of this video and use my code COW3 for free worldwide shipping on your first order over $500 or euros. Yeah, this hand seems okay. I'll keep this one. We can play on basics this time as well. Although, can we if we want to play an endurance? Maybe we can't. Yeah, I think we don't get that luxury. We're just fetching Bayou. Alright, another blue-black deck. Oh, we're looking at Doomsday. At least this is different. So, the endurance is a relevant game object. I wonder if our Wasteland is going to be relevant or not, though. Lion's Eye Diamond. Alright, they're not going right now. Okay. I guess this is as good a turn as any to Thoughtseize. Force of Will, pitching Ponder, okay. Let's slow our opponent down a bit. Getting a Shuko down or hitting for 1 is kind of the same either way, isn't it? It costs us 1 damage this turn, but gets us 1 damage next turn. We could have equipped it, but it doesn't really matter. We equip it when we're attacking. Lotus Petal. Play this out, we get access to Endurance. Are we playing Endurance around a daze? The pitch cast Endurance around a daze is probably what we're doing here. Which means we're attacking for 2. And hopefully we can clean up the bits afterwards. We get Surveil Land out of it as well. A Thoughtseize. Yeah, that sucks. So we lose Endurance because that's the thing that can stop them from winning the game. Let's get Surveil in. We need to find a Nadu here. That would probably be among our best draws. Oh, hello Nadu. Well, speak it and it exists, right? I'll play my land out for turn. Sure, not a bad draw. My problem is, does this do enough to stop our opponent from just being able to Doomsday and kill us? I am unsure. Because our own interaction is kind of low in this deck. We've got a smattering of like removal-y type spells. Oh wow, they just don't want us to draw those cards. Interesting. I think our opponent should have seen more of our deck, because we're obviously doing something a little bit unusual here. Disruptor Flute can name Doomsday, so I would like that in my deck, please. Endurance sometimes does stuff. Collector Ouphe sometimes does stuff. And the rest of this, not so much. Fatal Push, if they're on a pivot plan, could be an option. Wasteland is useful in this matchup. I think Grist as a tutorable removal spell is better than a Fatal Push, actually. We're not getting rid of the Endurances here. The Leovold is very good. The Bowmasters is very good. Are they going to be targeting our guys? Not that much. So I guess we can probably strip one of those out. We want the Halflings. We want the... I guess we don't need the Keen-Eyed Curator. It's not the Graveyard I hate, it's the putting more cards on their lively side of Endurance is good for us. We just cut in one more thing. Don't think we cut the Zeniths. Do we cut the Dismember? Just assume we can beat Baragwave with our deck. We've got a Grist, we can tutor for it anyway. Yeah, I can believe that. The other thing they have is Tamiyo, but you can't always kill that with removal anyway. Because why shouldn't a 1-mana Planeswalker also be able to dodge removal if you play the old Brainstorm around it? Okay, Hand Disruption, good. We have a Nadu combo, also good. This is what I'm talking about. Alright, just an Undercity Sewers. So we're going to get a chance to have a look at their hand. Potentially here. They're not going to be able to brainstorm anything away. Left a card on top. Alright. I will have my free Once Upon a Time. Leovold, very good against our opponent's deck. We don't have the mana to cast it just yet, but we will do it at some point, I'm sure. So let's Thoughtseize our opponent. Edge of Autumn, Dark Ritual, Personal Tutor. Interesting. This obviously finds them a copy of Doomsday. Left a card on top. We can take the Dark Ritual, which is one of the things they need. I think we're just going to take a Personal Tutor though. Just getting in my own head about, oh, they left a card on top, but what could that card be? It could be mana, it could be another, like a draw effect. It could just be another Doomsday. And they just insert themselves against Hand Disruption. There's a swamp. We're going to see, like they can win. If they have, yeah, so if we're taking the Dark Ritual, we probably win this game, but now they're just going to Doomsday because they had a Doomsday on top. Although we do have the Endurance. I don't know if they can beat that. Because they have a pile where they can Edge of Autumn into the pile, then Brainstorm again. So to get too deep into the pile straight away. But hopefully this endurance is enough to beat them. Well, our opponents made their pile. Anything interesting in their sideboarding? Nope, no pivot. So that's good to know. They're not going in here. Interesting. Wonder what that means for us. Probably means they stacked a Thoughtseize on top of their library. Not a big lever of that. Let's play this out. Play out our Birds of Paradise. So they're going to Thoughtseize us, and then they're going to win, because our endurance isn't going to do enough. It's not even going to be in play. I guess if they Thoughtseize us, we can shove the endurance into play. And just put that Doomsday on the bottom of their library. But they still win with their plan. Alright. Brainstorm. Wondering if they could have done this last turn, so they had Edge Vault and Brainstorm. A Lion's Eye Diamond Line. That gets blown out by endurance pretty hard. Here comes a Thoughtseize. Okay. Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. Alrighty. If you draw a card while your library has no cards in it. So I have to do the endurance right now. What are we pitching here? Trying to work out, do I want the Nadu or the Leovold? I guess we can pitch the Quirion Ranger. And then find something else to go with the Nadu in a bit. So milled over their Oracle. So we know the rest of the cards in their pile. Now Jace can still win through this. But Leovold will be helpful in stopping that. Let's get our Surveil land. Yeah, I think we do want a Surveil land here. I was thinking about Dryad Arbor just so we can attack, but I don't think that's correct. Okay, so our opponent's got one card in hand. We don't necessarily know what it is. I'll put this as a Saga. I'll deploy the Leovold. It's a round of days. This means they can't draw extra cards with the Jace. So they just have to naturally draw, so it's going to take them 5 turns. So we should be able to finish them off with 4 hits. Obviously we get to add a Nadu to the board so we can kill them a lot quicker. I think there's probably a way they could have just had Thoughtseize in their pile. Which still does mill them actually, doesn't it? So next turn they mill themselves out and then they win in their next draw step after that. Okay. It's getting a little dicey. I think just making Nadu makes the most sense here, doesn't it? So we have a 3 this turn. We need to find 1 more point of damage next turn. They can't draw extra cards right now because of Leovold, so they can't win with this. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. If you would draw a card when your library has no cards, then you win the game. But they can't draw a card. I don't understand necessarily if would means that it doesn't work. I'm pretty sure we're okay here though. So we need to draw like Scythecat Cub or something to get that 1 extra damage in. Oh, okay, yeah. They have Edge Vault, don't they? They can just cycle it right now and win. Yeah, that works too. Okay. Let's go back in, I suppose. I'm not going to put Pithing Needle on the Jace, am I? Is that really what I'm doing? I think we just need to stop the Doomsday rather than trying to beat a Doomsday pile. Alright, we're on the play. Collector Ouphe can sometimes do some stuff. Endurance is fine. We have the Nadu combo in a few turns, if we can get there. It's fine. It's not exciting, it's what we have though. I don't think we can just mulligan to Thoughtseize. Right, we can begin with a Surveil land. Drop the Ouphe on 2. Off of the Saga. And then when the Saga pops, we can also just go and get the Nadu and have the combo. Draw a bunch of cards, have a good time. Win the game. Underground Mortuary. What are you going to find for us? Delighted Halfling. It's not really that exciting. Disruptor Flute Thoughtseizes would be something I'm interested in. I'll take the Thoughteize, obviously. We don't have another Surveil land. We can go and get our Dryad Arbor out of the way, but this kind of needs to find us... It doesn't need to find us blue mana. We kind of want to get the Saga up and running though, don't we? Yeah, we'll get the Saga up and running, and then we'll Thoughtseize our opponent. I think Thoughtseize is better than a Collector Ouphe most of the time. Let's have a little peek at what our opponent is working with. They didn't shuff off his ponder, so they could be floating something good on top. Alright, Force of Willing, my spell. Sure. Underground Sea. Dark Ritual. Are we dead this turn? They've got the 1 blue open, so they've got a Brainstorm, we die. 4 mana, it's going to be a Shouldered. They have pivoted. Okay. Interesting. Next turn we get the Nadu, so what are we doing in the meantime? Am I going to just make a construct and chump block? Leaves us with more green cards for endurance. That seems fine. Nadu doesn't draw us cards, so it's not going to care about the Shouldered. Do we even chump block here? We'll activate it now, see if our opponent wants to spend removal on it. Like if we leave this in play, it's just more cards off of the Nadu. So I think we just take the 4. Don't think we can afford to take another 4, but we're going to get to see some cards before then. They're going to Doomsday us as well. It took a long time to sideboard for game 3, so maybe I should have guessed that they were doing this sort of stuff. Okay, 1 card in hand. We do lose the days, but it is what it is. Oh, no, 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 no. What have I done here? Oh, no. I forgot about this draw. Oh, I've absolutely, completely biffed this. I was supposed to tap this in our main phase, and I tapped it in the draw step because I forgot about the shoulder trigger coming down. Oh, no. I think we could have had this game. I hope our opponent's got days and we're punished anyway. But, yikes, that was a huge punt there. Okay, so we still have lines in this game, but that was real loose. So we go for Birds of Paradise. Kind of don't want to play this Collector Ouphe. Although, because they can just not attack us. And then we can't activate our Shuko. Oh, this has all gone horribly wrong for us. Wow, what a fatal misclick there. Yeah, we don't play the Collector because if our opponent's smart, they just sit back and then we die because we don't get to do our Nadu thing, which is what we need to get out of this horrible spot. Oh dear, oh dear. It wouldn't let me control Z because I went through the shoulder trigger. My brain was just like, oh, it's my Urza Saga trigger. Oh dear. I block one of these. Do I block? So definitely block the Barragoyf. Do I block the shoulder as well? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that gives us 2 turns of Naduing. I can take 2 cards if I leave the Birds of Paradise. I think I'm just going to take the 4 here. Crack this for a land. Go to 3. Get another Trop is fine. And Zenith. And we need some good Nadu rips here. Yeah, I think our misclick is going to cost us there. Alright, so we get Nadu. Target the Birds of Paradise. We got a Fatal Push on our Nadu. I do indeed. A Verdant Catacombs. I think we're just going to scoop it up there. Yeah, I'll misclick. So they drew the Lotus Petal this turn, so they wouldn't have been able to Fatal Push our Nadu if we'd have gone last turn. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Annoying. Let's go to round 4. We can't keep this open. I'm going to mulligan this one. This one is better. We can keep this. Chuck back one of the Once Upon a Times. Not very good in multiples, the old Once Upon a Times. Another land. I'll take more lands. I'll just take a Bayou here. Thoughtseize straight away. There's a lot of turn 1 decks that we might need to interact with. Force of Will, Underground Sea, Spell Pierce, Barragoyf. We just take the Barragoyf. If our opponent wants to spend 2 cards to answer one of our things, that's fine. Like if they count the Scythecat Cub and the Leovold will get through. If they don't count the Scythecat Cub, it can bash them around the head a few times. The Barragoyf in the main deck means they're probably not running reanimate stuff. So we're going to be more into like a tempo situation here. A Ponder. No shuffle on that Ponder. Not too worried about the Spell Pierce. Underground Mortuary. Well, let's play the Mortuary, I think. Green Sun Zenith is A-OK with me. I'll get this Shuko in. Maybe this gets a Force of Will out of our opponent. We're not really doing that necessarily right now. Because they know they can't Spell Pierce this. So maybe this gets a Force of Will out of our opponent. They had a Daze though. Didn't see that before. Alright, so the Spell Pierce we know about. Okay, we're getting Thoughtseized here. What would you like to take? The cat or the Leovold? Took the Leovold. So now is probably the time to Zenith while we can play around the Spell Pierce. Is that even that good? I think we just go for the cat here, and if our opponent wants to force it, then they can. And then we'll find a spot for this green sun at some point. I suspect the Spell Pierce is what goes into the Force of Will anyway. Oh, we just in with it. That's also fine by me. So cracking this now is the same as cracking it later on. It's just one counter. But if we find a second cat, then it can be more counters. And then can turn another land into 2 counters. So it ends up being better if we save this for now. Unless we go and get a Dryad Arbor right now. But I don't want to get a Dryad Arbor. A Wasteland. Am I... Okay, I'm going to play the Wasteland first. I could go and get another Cub here, but it goes straight into the Spell Pierce. It's just not worth. Okay, so let's attack with our Scythecat Cub. It beats stuff like an Orcish Bowmaster. And then if they tap out for something to deal with this cat, then we can slide in Felt Push. Now, if they do this, which doesn't tap out, that also sucks for us. So the one option we did have there was to go and get Dryad Arbor and get a 2/2 Dryad Arbor into play. But we might want the blue mana off the Verdant Catacombs, so I didn't really want to crack it just for a Dryad Arbor. I don't really want to Wasteland just yet. We have a Grist or Zenith, and they have a Spell Pierce. So there's a lot of use for this land that we have. Question is, how long does this game stay like this? If they find a Murktide and just get to start turning that sideways, then we're just going to lose the game very quickly. Baragoi, similar but different. Okay, we're not getting the Grist in yet. Let's just generate some more mana. This makes it easier to play around the Spell Pierce. They still have the Force of Will. We just want to make it so that they have to spend the Force on our thing instead of just being able to 1-for-1 it. Brazen Borrower, just as a guy. Yes, pretty good. There's your threat. 6-turn clock isn't the fastest. But our opponent has plenty of... Well, they have at least 2 things that can interact with us. Which is plenty when we're on low resources. This turn we can force out a Spell Pierce. I don't want to get the blue and have it wastelanded just yet. I guess we have 2 blue sources, right? We can just go get a Trop, and then we can go and get a Trop later if we want one. Right, X is 3. This is going to force a force out of our opponent because we can pay for the Spell Pierce. So it's probably going to be force pitching Spell Pierce. Now they've brainstormed, they might have some different stuff in hand to what we think. Force, pitching Spell Pierce. Yeah. This is the play that we expected to happen. And now we just need to top deck some business. Like, we're both on reduced resources here. They have a threat in play, we have a 0/1 bird. Hardcast Force of Will mana is available to our opponent though. Keeping back the Brazen Borrower. Why are they keeping that back? Urza Saga is a pretty darn good draw. This is a lovely spot for it. Surprised our opponent's keeping those... not keeping those lands in hand because they have Brainstorm in their deck. Alright, we'll take 3 here unless they're going to put a Kaito in. We should still take 3 if they put a Kaito in. And they didn't put a Kaito in, that's good news. We ourselves don't have Brainstorm, we do have Landfall Trigger, so I will leave this land in hand. And I will start cranking out the friends. Why didn't they get Surveil Land in their end step there? In our end step. Alright, we're going to get a 1/1 out of our Saga because they found a Wasteland. That's a little upsetting. So we might be able to use this Wasteland to get rid of Hardcast Force of Will mana at some point. I think we are in the go and get Dryad Arbor stage of the game here. Okay, we're attacking with some small creatures. We do get to block with Birds of Paradise at some point. Brainstorm obviously pretty darn good for our opponent. Wasteland can shut us off with blue, that's really annoying. We do obviously have a blue land in hand, but I would rather use this to get landfall triggers down the stretch. But we're kind of just playing whatever's on the top of our deck at this point. We don't have any agency left in this game. Are we chump blocking this turn? I don't think we chump block this turn, I think we chump block next turn. No Kaito, good. Keen-Eyed Curator. This is a real card. Our opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They probably have a basic island in their deck, so we can't wasteland them off of Force of Will here. So we're just going to go Play the Keen-Eyed Curator. So they've got the High-Cast Force of Will. It's not great for us, but we can't really play around it. We need to get some pressure going here. Okay, so I'll attack with 2 creatures. We're going to be chump blocking with the Birds of Paradise. We've got Artifact in our graveyard, Instant Sorcery, Enchantment, loads of stuff here. 2 and a blue. A Dismember, you say? Alright, I'm going to exile my Urza Saga for 1 mana. We're going to make this into a big enough guy that will live through the Dismember. I don't think that's where you point the Dismember. Certainly not with that timing. Alright, I'll get rid of a creature from our opponents. So we got land, enchantment, creature. So we need to exile 1 more thing. So we can go sorcery is fine. And this will make this big enough to survive. I think you need to do that with different timings. Like in response to me eating... I guess I won't eat the Urza Saga first if our opponent's got a card in hand. Unfortunately, we're not quite killing our opponent just yet. So we've got another draw step after this to try and find a way through. I will 100% be chump blocking here. Eat a fatal push. We're standing on Dryad Arbor. Sure, that doesn't actually change the clock here. If we draw Scythecat Cub, we're good. Once Upon a Time. Alright, let's cast you. None of these cards are particularly good. Sylvan Safekeeper will do, I suppose. Means we're not losing any of our creatures. Go attacks here. I guess we didn't need to attack with the construct actually. But if they have a Brazen Borrower, we're dead anyway, so it doesn't matter. So not Brazen Borrower, an Orcish Bowmaster. Because they just go to the face then. Brazen Borrower can't block creatures without flying. So it's probably attacking here. I should have been exiling cards from their graveyard in case they drew a Murktide actually. Because we can make them so they have a 7/7 Murktide. Rather than 8/8. Feels like a big deal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Please let me activate my Keen-Eyed Curator now. Alright, let's keep it up. Yeah, we should have activated our Keen-Eyed Curator in their upkeep. So, we don't really want Thoughtseizes for this. We want removal spells and endurance. I'm not going to board in... I kind of want the Snuff Outs a little bit because they answer Murktide Regent. But they don't answer any of their other threats. Which is not great. I guess I'll have 1 over a Wasteland. Dismember answers some stuff. Like, none of our removal spells just clearly answer everything apart from Assassin's Trophy and Grist. I think this is okay. I'll try this. We have a Nadu combo and a little bit of interaction. I think this is okay. We're going to need to find another coloured source. But I can live with that. We've got it Once Upon a Time, pretty good at finding lands. The Thoughtseize us, I will snap off this Once Upon a Time in response. Nethergoyf, sure, just some guy, that's fine. We found the land we want. A Delighted Halfling is very interesting. I will hold up here for a fatal push. I don't think we need to fatal push this one necessarily. Alright, this is why I didn't do it. I didn't want to play into the Wasteland. I could get a basic forest and deploy the Halfling. It does make it difficult for us to get any sort of Nadu into play without the Halfling though. But they have a Wasteland, which is a problem. We could just play out the Urza Saga and then Wasteland that. Am I shooting a 2/3? I think that's fine. Keep our life total relatively well padded. Let's go for this Urza Saga. Are you going to Wasteland it with the trigger on? Am I going to play around days? Yes, I am. I'm just going to pass. I'm not going to play the Shuko into a daze. We're just going to kind of trade a bit of resources, then hopefully we're left with Nadu plus Shuko at the end. So now the Wasteland's gone, I'm happier deploying this Delighted Halfling. We haven't given them a good opportunity to do removal yet, so I suspect a Fatal Push is just going to get pointed at this. Orcish Bowmasters. Sure. Basic Island. Netherglyph is whatever. There is the Fatal Push that we were expecting. Take a little bit of damage here. And we ambush them in combat with an Endurance, probably. Sure, you can brainstorm. Quite a bold brainstorm into potential Orcish Bowmasters on our side. Another Netherglyph? Sure. Let's crack this, go and get a Tropical Island. Deploy our Endurance. Got some interaction there, opponent. If they don't have interaction, then our Endurance gets to sweep stuff up, and that's pretty good. And if they do have interaction, then it's not being pointed at our Nadu, which is also pretty good, and we could just maybe make a land and just start doing Nadu things next turn. Blue and blue. So we're going to see a good old-fashioned counter spell for a second then. One card left in our opponent's hand, so we're going to take 6 this turn, that's fine. I would like to play both the Nadu and the Grist at the same turn. That's why the Nadu and the Shuko at the same turn, so now we have a land that allows us to do that. I'm going to go and get a Tropical Island again, I think, here. Let's play the Nadu around a Daze, because I'd rather have this in play than the Shuko. Can I have the Shuko now? Or was the last card in your hand Daze? It was not a Daze. Got another land, don't hate that. Got Dryad Arbor. Okay, that's what I was going to fetch with my land, so. Alright, Delighted Halfling, that's fine. Another Nadu. I'll go get Bayou, deploy his Halfling. May as well get a forest here. Halfling. This can then draw some cards itself as well. Fatal Push is nice, we can find a land to go with it. Another Fatal Push. Okay. So this is the situation we've been trying to engineer this entire game, where we trade resources backwards and forwards, and then the last thing out of our hand is the thing that just gasses us all the way up. So we can do some chump blocking, and that's probably fine. I'll probably just send in the Netherglyph, so we can just block 1. That's reasonable. We should be able to get like 6 cards and kill 2 guys next turn. We can also just play another Nadu, which resets all of our Nadu triggers, so we can go again. Shoot the Sheriff. They're targeting our Nadu. The Nadu wasn't blocking anyway. Are they going to give us a nice black land here? No. Give us an Orcish Bowmasters though. Are they attacking with the 1/1s? Okay, attacking with one of the 1/1s. So we're definitely chump blocking a Baraglyph here. Sorry, not Baraglyph, a Netherglyph. Am I trading? Or am I just preserving our life total? We just preserve a life total. Our hand is so good here. We just need to not die and then we win the game. So I know we've got this Nadu already. We could have tapped leaving up the other Fatal Push actually. That would have been a little bit cleaner. But I'm expecting we're probably going to play this Orcish Bowmasters. Delighted Halfling is fine. I think I just play out a Delighted Halfling here rather than the Bowmasters, because this doesn't play into a Daze. Gives us 2 more looks to find another land. Still leaves up this Fatal Push as well. Might find a Wasteland. That doesn't hurt. It's a mana source. I'll take it. Okay. So now I can deploy the Bowmasters and ping this down. That gets us 4 more cards. Then we can do the army, which gets us another, which gets us a couple of cards into the deck. There's a Saga ticking up. Oh, target 1 too many times there. Okay, so the world is kind of our oyster at this point, isn't it? What lands have we got left in our deck? 2 Bayous is it. Okay, let's go and get our 2 Bayous. Let's fire off a Fatal Push, I think, here. Underground Mortuary is fine. Alright, I'm probably just scooping up because we have all of the cards and all of the things. So this seems like a matchup where we're in a pretty good spot because our opponent has to trade backwards and forwards. And as long as they don't have one of their big haymakers like the Baraglyph or the Murktide, we can usually get through it. Murktide probably the worst because of the evasion. Alright, 4 rounds in, we're fine on the board. Let's see if we can get a nice 2-3 to finish out the league. Alright, our opponent is known for being an Oops or Spells player, so I guess we hope that we have an endurance. I think I played them against them once when they weren't playing heaps of spells. I think they were playing Show and Tell once. This hand doesn't really do much, and they've mulliganed to 6. So we could just try and Wasteland them if they're on a slower hand where they need to play their land drops out. But then our hand just isn't very good anyway. Some looks, isn't it? I think this hand is actually okay. What goes back here is the tricky one. It should probably be the Leovold. Are we dead on turn 1? Let's find out. Right, they're playing a land. So, doing something a little bit different. Black mana, a Barragoy, another Goy for sure. That's fine. A Bauble. So this could be the mono black, like, aggro-y style deck. We still keep this hand regardless anyway. I think this hand is fine. Getting a Dryad Arbor feels a little sketchy if our opponent is running Orcish Bowmasters though. Alright, let's take a little peek with this Once Upon a Time. We've got some lands. What are we going to take here? I think I'll take a Swamp. We just try and play around. I guess we're not playing around Wastelands, are we? I'll get a Bayou. And we're going to go and get a Dryad Arbor here. So the plan is just keep Green Sun's anything until we get Nadu and win. This is what I didn't really want to see. It's probably not a surprise. Okay, so Delighted Halfling is actually fine on this board. And 1-2 is going to keep back some of their more aggressive creatures. Let's go and get the Delighted Halfling here. So next turn we can go and get Nadu. Or we can Dismember plus Shuko and then get the Nadu the next turn. They can't really interact with Shuko while it's in play. Alright, they don't have another Orcish Bowmasters, otherwise you attack with the Orc army here. So there's some useful information. They're also now showing us blue mana, which we didn't see before. So they're on like a blue-black tempo deck. A Barragoy. Sure, we can go over the top of that. There's already an instant in the graveyard though, so we can just smash this up now. Which I think is what I want to do. Okay, they've been F6ing a lot, which is good information to have. We could have done this in a way that allowed us to play the Endurance. Just going to play and equip Shuko here. And then next time we can just do Nadu things and go over the top. So this is either our opponent has Kaito or another Orcish Bowmasters. I'm going to let them have a Kaito if that's the cost of us not getting blown out by an Orcish Bowmasters. So Kaito, they probably just draw cards. Okay, they were just playing the Orcish Bowmasters. This Wasteland is actually really annoying. But if we draw a land, it's okay. We did draw a land. Okay. I believe we're better off doing Nadu than anything else because that is the best thing our deck does. Client here. They've been F6ing every turn and now they're not F6ing, which means they might have drawn a Daze. They did not draw a Daze. Let's get Nadu going. Let's yield to these. The land is obviously not a bad one to have access to here. Don't mind another land either. Another land giving us this Endurance would be good. Nope. But we have a Birds of Paradise that we can put into play. If we get a forest here. Am I playing the Birds of Paradise or are we just going to Green Sun Zenith? I think we're Green Sun Zenith here. The last one worked, so they obviously don't have any interaction. So I think we go and get the Ranger allows us to untap a guy. The Sylvan Safekeeper gives us Shroud. I think Shroud is more important here. I shouldn't click always yield to this, should I? So I want to go and get a Birds of Paradise into play, I think so. Just drawing all the cards. I'm not going to Thoughtseize my opponent. Okay, that seems like a good amount of stuff that we've done there. Alright, let's give our Delighted Halfling some Shroud. We're looking for a land to cast an Endurance with. We found the land. This puts us to 1 if we do this though. Is that really where I want to be? I don't know if I want to go to 1 in Orcish Bowmaster world. Alright, we'll go to blocking. We'll block here. We'll trade here, I guess. We'll block the Barragoyf. The Nethergoyf, sorry. It did have the other Bowmasters. Okay. I'm going to ping our face, presumably. Right, let's just hit the Orc army here so our Sylvan Safekeeper lives. Alright, let's give it up because we just have so much stuff. Excellent. So, again, this is going to be a matchup where we strip out these Thoughtseizes. And then we're adding in Endurances. And I'll take some Fatal Pushes. Snuff Outs. I don't know if they're going to be useful at all in this matchup. We haven't seen the Murktide yet. If they're running Nethergoyfs, they're probably doing Nethergoyf, Barragoyf, Kaito. So I think we just submit like this. Now this hand is not very exciting, but I think it's acceptable. Ponder from our opponent. They didn't shuffle off their ponder. Alright, first things first, let's Once Upon a Time. Urza Saga's pretty good. Got some things our opponent's doing. We can go and get a Surveil land here, or we can try and Wasteland our opponent. I'm okay Wastelanding here, actually. Take this game a bit slower. We've got so many lands, we may as well just make it grind a little bit slower. Tap land, pitching in Nethergoyf. A little unexpected. Right, so we've got a Surveil land as our plan for next turn. Tamio's good. Surveil land, what are you going to show us? A Fatal Push. Should I put on top of my library? I will deploy an Urza Saga, I think. Are we doing the grind? Doing the Saga grind? I think we'll do the Saga grind, or do I just want to get a land in? Let's get a land in, actually. If our opponent cracks this land at end step to get a Surveil land, we just Fatal Push the Tamio away. They didn't do it. Okay, sure. So now we just have to take our lumps from this Tamio. Now, our Nadu stuff does go bigger than Tamio, but we have to get it down through the extra cards that the Tamio is drawing them. So this is going to be a little Barragoyf. Ninjutsu. Okay. What do we want here? We make the Scythecat Cub, it just gets tapped down anyway. That's probably fine if our plan is to Grist them. So we can go and get a Dryad Arbor and use that to Grist, or we can go and get a Black Source and Fatal Push. Grist does kill Planeswalkers, I believe. Type creature or Planeswalker, yes. There is Tamio again. There is the Brainstorm. I think we have to wait for this trigger to go on the stack. And then we can try and Fatal Push it. But we are behind here. Okay. We getting our creature Fatal Pushed. Black, shoot the Sheriff. Bitter Triumph. Okay. People are running that so you can actually blow up Planeswalkers. Alright. Making their ninjas bigger. That seems odd to me. I think you would rather just get the value out of it. Alright, let's cast the Grist. Does this resolve? We can pay through a daze. Alright, they have a Force. Alright, let's go and get our Tropical Island. Get Shuko down for Nadu purposes. You know, they could have done this last time and got more cards. And we'd be on 5 now. And then they could just... Actually, no, we'd be on 6. Maybe they're just trying to get in underneath the Nadu combo. Orcish Bowmasters is pretty good too. We can block this Kaito in combat. Probably going to crack some clues here. Or crack their clue. An Orcish Bowmaster, yep. Pinging us down. I'm going to crack that clue as well. I'm not cracking the clue. Here is my Orcish Bowmasters. And Brainstorm, sure. That's why they left the mana open last turn instead of cracking the clue. Let's ping this off. Have a Bowmaster of their own. They fail pushing our Orc army. Okay. So if we draw Nadu, we might be okay. Oh, they had a daze as well. Sure. If you got it all, you got it all, opponent. Fair enough. Do I do anything differently here? Maybe, do I want a Pithing Needle for Kaito? Probably better than a Wasteland, isn't it? Let's be honest. Alright, I'll take that. Alright, this hand looks pretty good to me. I'll keep this. I think we go Trop Halfling. So we can make an uncountable Nadu next turn. Fatal Push, you say. Get Bayou here. Just get the Nadu down. If they want to interact with it, it's going to cost them something anyway. And they can't trade 1 for 1 with a Nadu. And then next turn we can just Green Sun Zenith up. Whatever we want. Wasteland. Right, so they're going to try and Fatal Push our Nadu right now. Nope, just another Goif. Okay. Try and Green Sun Zenith. A Force of Negation. You got it. Right, I will crack him for 3 here. I'm not sure if I want this Wasteland to Wasteland our opponent or not. I don't think so. I think I'd rather use it to pay for Daisies or help us cast some like 3-drops or whatever and funnel mana into our Zeniths. On top of that, it also is a thing we can sacrifice to a Safekeeper if we can find one. Polluted Delta. Now, we don't know if they found that land from the brainstorm and needed to do that. Right, there's a Tamiyo. Bash for 2. We can block this Tamiyo. And Endurance. Intriguing. I'll put a land out. I will attack. I don't believe they're going to block with the Tamiyo here anyway, but if they do, that's just free for us then. I think we're just going to hold up the tools we have. If we get our Endurance in and we shrink their graveyard, we can kill both of these creatures. Drawing a card with a clue. Alright, they're just scooping it up at that point. Because what happens is we shrink their graveyard. We block the Tamiyo with our Endurance. We block the Nethergoyf with our 1-2. And they lose everything and we're left with 3 good permanents in play. So we certainly pulled it back at the end. We were having a pretty miserable start to the league, but when we were playing against the blue-black tempo decks, we were crushing them quite nicely. Because that's what Nadu does. If you're in a relatively fair matchup, Nadu's going to go over the top. If you're in an unfair matchup, where your opponent's got things like Entombs, or they're trying to show and tell stuff in, you're just going to die. And that is kind of what happened today. So let's talk about the deck. There's some pretty cool stuff going on in here, but it does feel like you can definitely get some really weird-looking hands where you've got parts for your Nadu plan, but then nothing to go with it, or, you know, just a Shuko in your hand that's kind of pretty bad on its own, and we don't have amazing interaction here. If we just move some stuff around. So if we look at like the direct interaction spells, it's like these, and Bowmasters sometimes is interaction. So we're not actually big. Like obviously Endurance can interact with graveyards, but in most games a Thoughtseize is going to be useful, right? And a thing that blows up any opponent obviously going to be useful, and removal is going to be generally useful. But then we're just trying to execute our own game plan, and it sometimes feels like we're drawing really disparate bits. I think if I was building like a Nadu deck that looked like this, my starting point would be Nadus and more Scythecat Cubs. Scythecat Cub was kind of like the intermediate threat that I just wanted all the time. I'm not a big lover of Birds of Paradise in the meta with all the Bowmasters at the moment. It feels a little bit sketchy at times. Now I understand why it's in here, because we have blue costs we want in our black-green deck. So obviously this helps. But Delighted Halfling kind of does the same thing anyway. I think I would probably cut both birds and add in a 4th Delighted Halfling to try and get these things going. Now the birds helps you cast things like Orcish Bowmasters, whereas the Delighted Halfling doesn't. It just gives you colourless mana, but in theory you should have your mana from the land that you cast your Delighted Halfling off of for that. I think if I was trying to do this, if I was trying to build like a green Nadu deck where I didn't have white in it, I think I would personally try and lean more heavily into the whole landfall, Bristly Bill, Scythecat Cub style thing. I did play a deck a little bit like that a while back with like Mockingbirds and things in, and that was okay. I just feel like if you want to go into the Nadu plan, you need to go into the Nadu plan harder, because against the fair decks, we've got the time to just sort of play a game of Magic and play the Nadu, and it looked great in the tempo matchups. I don't think anyone is going to say that it didn't look good in those matchups at all. I thought it was great. It felt like we were going to be winning the matches. I didn't really feel any problem against blue-black. If there was a tournament of just blue-black tempo, I'd happily play a deck like this. However, when we're against a combo deck, one of our options could be to combo harder or to disrupt them and have just like good bits and pieces that are clocking them. I think because of how combo the meta is, it's like nearly 60% combo at the moment. Having like 4 Nadus and more stuff that go with Nadu so that you can just go, okay, we're going to be doing Nadu stuff. You can't stop me doing the Nadu stuff early on, and we're going to be getting all the resources that allow us to find the disruption. You either do that or you have more disruption. And I'm not really sure what the best way of doing that would be necessarily. There was a few situations with our mana was a little bit awkward because like the Urza Saga is colourless, but obviously we want this to go and fetch up our Shukos. I wonder if we're better off playing something instead of the Sagas, because we weren't really making constructs very much. The fact that this was an enchantment did come up in one game because we could actually get the Keen-Eyed Curator to get through a Dismember, although I think that was just a mistake of our opponent using their Dismember at an awkward timing. But what we could do is maybe like some of the colourless lands could be coloured lands, maybe coloured utility lands, things like Otawara and Boseiju would probably be a useful addition to this deck. And then maybe instead of having, like, you could still run Shuko if you want the Shuko and still have the Urza Saga, but you could run something else that tutors for Shuko. I'm sure there's something out there that is reasonable that we could play that tutors for Shuko. It's just, this doesn't feel like a deck that wants to go Saga on 1 and then Nadu combo on 3. It doesn't feel like that sort of deck, really. And we don't have enough pieces to do that very reliably anyway. This feels like, okay, this is just a way that we can tutor for stuff and maybe get some bits and pieces out of it. But again, I think it's going to, the way we're playing the Urza Saga is going to look better into the fair matchups. But I think the fair matchups is where we want to be anyway, because Nadu beats fair matchups on its own. I think what we need to do is try and focus on how to improve this against the unfair matchups. So we could lean more heavily into black and play more disruption and go a bit wild on that front. We could maybe play some other silver bullets, but we've already, like, you could play like a Collector Ouphe in the main, but that's not going to help when you're up against things like Show and Tell anyway. I think Show and Tell is going to be a bit of a tricky one for us unless we're playing a bunch more like Disruptor Flute effects, so maybe you could address that out the sideboard. The Snuff Outs here, these look great when you're playing against blue-red tempo, but terrible when you're playing against all the black tempo decks. And I'm not even sure how good it looks against blue-red tempo because 4 life is a lot. That's more than a lightning bolt's worth. So it can be a little bit sketchy. Now, obviously, you'd much rather fire this at, a Murktide than have a Murktide connecting with you. Sure, but we could run other removal there. We could run Shoot the Sheriff, and that could be pretty reasonable too. And if this were Shoot the Sheriffs, I would have brought them in the fair matchups that we did play that were against black decks because they would have been a little bit better than something like a Fatal Push. So there's definitely some tweaking here. It just feels like some of the 3 Orcish Bowmasters and 2 Scythecat Cub is kind of odd numbers of these cards, right? These are like sort of the best. This is kind of like our entire fair plan is sort of like these things. I guess this is just a fine creature that beats down, but like this is kind of how we're going to be beating people down unless we assemble the Nadu combo. Like Nadu on its own can beat and is fine, but I just feel like these are the sort of cards I would like to have more of. Like Cradle Control obviously plays 4 Scythecat Cub and is doing some similar stuff to us. It's got the mana dorks plus Green Sun Zenith package, but then they're going into a lands package. And instead of going into lands package, we're going into a Nadu package. So you could maybe draw some stuff from there and tweak it a little bit. But there's a lot to like about something like this. And it's nice to play a Nadu deck that isn't just like straight up I win Nadu type stuff. Like we do have Shuko that can kind of pop it off. But our whole deck isn't dedicated to doing Nadu. It's just like a thing in our deck. I think this is like the second time I played this deck on the channel. I've played another Nadu deck that, again, wasn't dedicated all around doing Nadu. It was just something that we had. But yeah, I think if I was going to propose any changes, I would probably -2 Birds of Paradise, get rid of some number of these colourless lands to add in like Otawara, Boseiju. So maybe 2 Wastelands for Otawara and Boseiju. Boseiju can be a Wasteland in a pinch anyway, and then you're just going to have slightly better colours. And If you want to find a different way to tutor for your Shukos, you could do that. I don't know what that would be. I don't think we want to be doing like Trinket Mage stuff, but maybe there's some other card that I'm not aware of that's pretty good for that. The Once Upon a Time is all right here, but maybe we could even try Commune with Beavers. Is that wild? Maybe. What does it find? It finds Nadu, Grist, Orcish Bowmasters, Scythecat Cub. It finds all of these, but it doesn't find the Zeniths and the Thoughtseizes, so maybe not. Obviously, the Once Upon a Time doesn't either, but the Once Upon a Time is free. So you play this on your first turn, it sets up your first turn. Now I take it back. Once Upon a Time is fine here. I'm just sort of thinking aloud because I like to do that sometimes. Sideboard-wise, we use a bunch of these things. I've already spoken out, Snuff Out, and how I feel it sits in the meta. It's not really the removal spell of choice that I would lean on. Now, when it looks good, it looks really good. But like the Cradle Control decks have got some big scary black creatures. A lot of the Tempo decks are playing black, so they have scary black creatures. Death and Taxes has some scary black creatures, although you're definitely going to be bringing them in against Death and Taxes and hitting their failures and stuff, but you're not going to be able to hit their Bowmasters or their Overlord of the Bailmercs and stuff. So it's always difficult finding overlapping stuff. It is annoying to me, as a little aside here, that black, you know, is always supposed to be like, oh, that's the colour that kills creatures, but doesn't really have a good universal removal spell in black. Whereas in white, you get a 1-mana kill any creature spell. That just doesn't sit well with me. But that's a little rant over and done with design-wise. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this one. And I hope the person who donated, they actually won the competition I run every month on my Patreon. I just give any paying Patreon member has a chance. So one of them gets given a free donation deck for the channel every month. So if that interests you, you can sign up for like $2 is the minimum on my thing just to support the channel. And you might get thrown into the raffle and get yourself a donation deck on the channel. But I hope they're happy with how we played it today. I definitely didn't like how I played some things, and I did make that horrible misclick against that shoulder, which is still bothering me. But I definitely think there's some cool stuff going on here, and there's definitely some tweaks that I would make for the way I like to play it. Obviously, when you play a deck that looks like this with these sorts of like unusual numbers of like 3s and 2s of things that I would normally be thinking you want to bang in like 4 of, it's because somebody's played it and they've tuned it to the way that they like to play in the play style that they have. And that's not necessarily going to be the same as me just picking it up. So if I was playing this like in future leagues, I would definitely do some changes. But it's cool to see people working with stuff, even if I'm not a big fan of this card existing. Alright, we are now done. So thank you once again for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. If you need any spicy cards, check out my sponsor 341 Trading. And goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.